How are you? Welcome to Critical Moves of Telesur. 41 years ago, the Iranian people that was against the authority was seen on streets. This went to the Islamic Revolution. This commemoration helps us think about and reflect about this Persian country. And this is they have not been aligned with imperialism. So this is what we're going to be analyzing today. Let's listen to declarations of the main authority.
Trabajamos todos los días.
We work every day. We all want security. Nobody wants insecurity.
Le digo al pueblo de Irán.
We tell the people of Iran that there's not a single day when the government or I, as its representative, don't think about the foreign relationship of this country. We have shown that it is possible to interact with the world. Now let's locate this country we're speaking about.
Iran,
a power that's against the imperialism. This government is a sovereign country that's very important due to their location in the Middle East. Ever since the first years, the territory that is now occupied is known as Persia. Along with Iraq, is the home of very ancient civilizations. Iran has borders with Turkmenistan, the Caspian Sea, Iraq, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Iraq, and the Kurdistan. And they have coasts to many seas. Their capital city is Tehran. It's among the largest countries in the city. Regardless of the boycott that the U.S. has launched on Iran, Iran has a very important political influence. It has lots of resources of the fourth in oil and the first of gas in the world, as well as the Hormuz Strait that connects a passage through which the third part of the oil that is commercialized in the world circulates. They have a very large military force, one of the 13 in the world. It is one of the founders of the non-aligned countries, the Organization for the Islamic Cooperation, and OPEC. But when we speak of Iran, we have to speak also about the Arabic Gulf, located in Asia between Iran and the peninsula of Arabian Peninsula. There is the Gulf is an extension of the Indian Ocean. It connects with the Arabian Sea through the Strait of Hormuz. Their waters are over Iran, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, and the United Emirates. It has large sea reefs, and however, the fauna and flora has been in danger due to the oil spillages and the war, like the one of the Gulf War and the Gulf of Iran-Iraq. Regardless of the biggest of this, all of the water, their biggest resources is in oil. They have the largest one in the area. These nations supply 40% of the world exportation and around 15% of the exportation of subproducts of the oil. Most of their produce goes to Europe. The Foreign Minister of Affairs spoke about the position of Europe towards Iran. They say that we are responsible of what the United States is doing, but you are independent countries. The European Union is the largest world economy. So why do you allow the United States to intimidate us? Why? These are declarations that we put in context with more information. It says a foreign minister says that Europe gave in to the blackmail of Trump. He also said that he also posted a picture of the Washington Post that reveals that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, threatened Europe by the imposing a new tax of 25% on the importation of cars if they do not support his position on the nuclear agreement of Iran. This is the comprehensive plan of work. Don't take a fundamental high ground if you don't have it. In the same information, we have the subtitle, Rouhani, Iran currently has more uranium than before. Hassan Rouhani, president of Iran, said the current enriching of uranium is higher than the one that they had when they signed the agreement in 2015. I quote, "Today, we don't have limits on enriching uranium. This means that we have high technology, and it's much better than when we signed the nuclear agreement." This is what Rouhani said in a high-level meeting. Iran has broken all of the regulations of the agreement because the United States withdrew from this agreement. Another way was there was another article that says that it wasn't the biggest naval exercise, not even much significance in terms of power, but when Iran, China, and Russia had their boats in Iran, they were sending a message to the world. The Jerusalem Post says that the days after the December 29 of the year that just finished. This fact, according to Israeli media, says that this is a great moment for Tehran because the sanctions to Iran and the intent to isolate them are not working. And for this, to this end, they have had a reaction showing that their power is also the naval. On the other hand, this newspaper says that the Iran military is not a rival for the U.S. because their purpose behind these exercises is not to show that they can confront the United States, but to show that they can associate with other countries that also want to defy the power of the United States in a long term. These trials that included tactic exercises like the rescue of boats under attack began on the southeastern coasts of the Oman Sea. This in the middle of December, and then we found out through the press that was carried out with all of the success. I take advantage to suggest that you analyze a reflection that was published by Telesur called The Defense of Iran. It was written by Miguel Ángel Ferrer on January 10th. I'm going to extract a little bit. The assassination of Soleimani has been without a doubt a provocation. To fall in it would lead Iran to have a war with the United States, and this would give Washington the opportunity to destroy the Islamic Revolution. This is a purpose that the United States has sought ever since '79. So now the revolution has to avoid this war. And the eventual re-election of Trump is something that is not transcendental, because the enemy is not Trump; it's the imperialism, and of course it's the duration of this is longer than a simple man. And the Iranian Revolution is in front of them the obligation to reinforce their military force. And they have dedicated the major efforts to this end. But as we see with Iran, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, the main piece in the defense is to keep the support of the people. Just recently, these three nations have been attacks of fabricating false attacks.
Si el gobierno y pueblo de la eventual víctima se encuentran unidos en los propósitos concurrentes de defender al país y evitar caer en las provocaciones.
And what they're trying to do is avoid any type of provocations. Let's update information by the hand of our correspondent Hisham Moinous, who I greet. Hisham, how are you? Hi, colleagues. The Islamic Revolution that was taking place in '79, around the figure of the Ayatollah Khamenei, that led the liberation of Iran to the submission of the foreign empire of the United States and the UK, implied a dramatic change in not only Iran, but in all of the Middle East, because this revolution is based on following the laws of a culture that is not only Islamic, but also a long culture of Persian culture, which let's not forget that they have long history, and this has given them a longer outreach because their ideology tried to convince and persuade from love, not from coercion. This is why they had a rival model in the great centers of social engineering and an adversary of the Western culture and globalism that did away with historic cultures to impose a philosophy that allows them to advance in the hegemony plans. This is why the West and their allies, since more than 40 years, they attack constantly this revolution in Iran, because this culture has been able to maintain their roots and be themselves in accordance to their people. This is why they're always attacked. However, the revolution that goes along with the people, more than just upholding after many wars, they have also been able to consolidate and frustrate the plans of the West, not only against Iran, but also their military allies. The Islamic Revolution of Iran is one of the main pillars of the resistance bloc of the occupation. It's not the enemy of the Muslim world, such as the United States tries to say. The people, regardless of this maximum pressure activity, after they withdrew from the nuclear plan in 2018, and regardless of the economic blockade which tried to cause chaos, they are always next to their revolution and defend their principles, as well as to defend the correct causes. This is all we can say for today. Let's go back to studios in Caracas. Thank you very much, Hisham, for all of the information you just gave us. See you next time. Let's go to our next pause. Now we're going to participate with you through the critical move. Let's read it today.
Se vincule más con nosotros a través de las redes sociales, participe. Desde temprano la pusimos a disposición de la audiencia y hay varias personas que han respondido. ¿Por qué se empeña Occidente en
Why is there effort of the West to have blockades and sanctions to stop the advance of Iran? And what is the problem with the Islamic Revolution? Give us your feedback. We'll be right back.
Hablando sobre las negociaciones
Speaking about
nucleares,
the negotiations, when the other side is not reliable, things become hard. What person in the world can foresee what Trump will do tomorrow? Not even the White House. There is a person who foresee what Trump will do. Now we have this unforeseeable person that has caused problems, not only for us, but for everybody, to their own people, to the people in Mexico, in their own region, in the Pacific, in Europe, everywhere. How about if we do a timeline from what happened in the Islamic Revolution and their influence in the politics, social, and economic fields? During the decade of 1970, the Iranian had a monarchy that was absolute. Their conditions of life got worse due to the gap of economic differences, and the SAVAK, that was an intelligence system that was going against the opposition. In these situation, Ayatollah Khomeini was an image against the oppression. The intelligence tried to stop Khomeini, to calm him down, but it was the contrary. His detention created an uproar when the regime saw how inefficient the measures were that went everything from a coup d'etat and from using the force. They decided to liberate the Ayatollah Khomeini. However, some time later, they took him again, and he had to leave to Iraq and then to France. While the protest went ongoing, the people were determined to put an end to their dependence to the U.S. and to the UK. In 1979, the Ayatollah Khomeini came back to Iran. With his speeches, he decided to do away with the monarchy, and this happened some years later. The dictator fell with the success of the revolution. Then there was a takeover of the embassy. They took hostages 52 diplomats for more than 400 days. This was the House of Spies, and it was the place where there were protests against the U.S. In 1980, Iraq attacked Iran, and there was the Gulf Persian War. This went on for 8 years. The United States supported Saddam Hussein, who in 2003, the United States killed him too, saying that he had weapons of mass destruction. The confrontation between these nations costed the life to at least more than 1 million people and destroyed both economies. In June of 1989, Khomeini died, and a day later, Ayatollah Khomeini is now leading the country. Let's begin with the analysis in this first part. We are here with two experts from Spain. I greet them both on behalf of Critical Moves. Aritz, let's start with you. We are reflecting on the influence of the Islamic Revolution, not only inside Iran, but also beyond the borders. Well, before everything, I would like to say hi to you, Ray, and to my colleague on the panel, and to all of the audience of Telesur in these days where you are having another attack, and I want to show all of my support to you. Ray, as you were commenting about the topic, it's true that Iran, as the holder of this revolution that was held in 1978 and that finished in 79, we have to recall that the attack began in 73. United States had a soft coup and did away with Mossadegh, who was elected by the people, and they put an absolute monarch. And those decades that had a direct attack by the Western empires, to have a gendarme in the region, this is why that revolution of Iran, that of course it was said it was for human rights and individual rights,
sea Oriente Medio, Asia o América Latina, cuando son sus aliados. Tenemos ahí claro ejemplo
here we have the example of the Emirates or Saudi Arabia that are light years behind the Republic of Tehran in terms of liberties, but then in the news media, this is not projected, this is not said. Basically because they're allies of the interests of the West. This is something that we have to clarify and maintain it clear, because many times Iran is always a focus point with the Western media, but we have to see a little bit beyond why they're always in the spotlight and why they're so hated. Why is Iran, the post-revolution Iran, is so hated? And to stay in this line, I want to talk to my other participant. The question is, how much did the Western powers lose with the triumph of the revolution in Iran? Good afternoon from Valencia, España. The truth is that they have lost a lot. And fundamentally, who has lost is the state of Israel, because they are the holders of this imperialist force, American force. This is, in fact, they have dominated the Middle East, and they divided the zone as ever they believed. And it's important to say that the civilization of Iran is ongoing for many symbols, for many centuries. Ever since Darius I, all the way to the 16th century, practically when they become part of everybody. And of course, this is a religious confrontation. And they think, but it's not only this, because they make it seem as if it was only a religious confrontation. But let's not forget that in the mountains of Azerbaijan, there were some Shiite monks decide to call Ismail I as the first Shah de Iran. And they changed from Sunnites to Shiites. But the problem is not the Shiites. It's when the Islamic Revolution was won, the same day they changed the Israeli embassy, they closed it, and they put it to the OLP embassy. And it's the only country in the world, and they say it nonstop every day from their leader, the Soleimani, that it's the leader of the Quds, which is the liberation of the Quds, and this is Israel. It's basically the only country that they declare war on Israel, and they want to annihilate, they want to destroy Israel and give it back to Palestine. That's where the problem comes from. It's not a religious confrontation or from sectors. In fact, the Shah was a Shiite and he was friend of the U.S. He had good relationship with the Persian Gulf. But this is the problem back. Why do they hate Iran? Because of Israel. And this is why they create this blockade for 40 years. There have all been all pressure, sabotage. Even the war of Iraq-Iran was to destroy this power of Iran. And nowadays, every time they try to destroy it, they see that Iran is stronger every time. This has been shown on these last attacks on the bases. And I can insist, who is going to attack an American base nowadays? Well, they have destroyed an American base with an incredible precision. They have destroyed zones where there were radars and American drones. So the confrontation with Iran will not happen, as it has been said with Europe, because they are followers of the U.S. power. The day that Iran has good relationship with Israel, or recognize it as a country, all of the problems of the Middle East will stop. But while that doesn't happen, they will always find problems. Well, thank you. To closing with Aritz. Aritz, based on what Firat said, I want to ask you, do you think that Iran is still going to be the rock in the foot that the West has, with led by the U.S.? Totally. We also must clarify that many times, the line of the foreign line is non-existent. They don't have a line of their own, and many times it attempts against their own interests. We've seen it with Iran, but we've also seen it with China, with Russia, by sanctioning them, because the United States has said that they should be sanctioned, independently of the fact that Europe is benefited or not. So this on one hand. And then it's true that Iran is the great last field to implement their plans in the zone. So we've seen the defeat that they've had in Syria, where they've been incapable of implementing their plans there. And of course, that it's been because of the resistance of their people that have defended their lands. I'm talking about the Syrians, but obviously because of the support of Iran ever since the first day. Let's not forget that Syria was the only country that didn't give their backs in the Iran-Iraq war. It was the only country that did not give their back on Iran. So now we have to see that there's a brothership of these two countries. And so there's not only the important part for the articulation of the Palestinian resistance, as it's known today, when they're capable of resisting the attacks on behalf of Israel. So for years, we have seen a resistance that is sort of poor, but now they make Israel force a ceasefire, and this has not been seen a lot of time. So this is part of the heroic struggle of the Palestinian people, and also to give an option to the Palestinian people to reject the agreement of the century, where the United States and the other Western countries and NGOs, this was to try to force and accept and Iran has been the one that has given, that has made this reality true. The fact of knowing that they're not alone and they have the Republic of Iran. And there's this defeat of the Islamic culture. And let's recall that it's not only the Syrian parliament who called the Persian nation seeking for help when Al Qaeda, in their different regions, in their versions, they had a great amount of power in the Syrian country, but also the Iraqi parliament was not, they called for help, and then the Islamic Republic and Mexico was the first one to get there. So it was the General Qasem Soleimani, who was assassinated when he was along with commanders. And this is how it was in Iraq. So the hypocrisy of the West when assassinating those who most hardly have combated the Islamic countries. These are barbarians and savage. There has been no doubt, and declare themselves as the boss of the flowers. And there you can see and at one point, let's not forget that Trump can say one thing, and then 5 hours later, he can say the exact contrary. So this is not a stable organization or administration, and one that you can coordinate with. Well, thank you very much. This is a very important battle. And to put it at the end for the question for Fidesz, but we have lost communication with him, I'm going to ask you. Looking over the text that we have gone over this topic, specifically the one in terms of, it says that the final war is not the
sino el derrocamiento de la revolución islámica, como es en el caso de Cuba, el derrocamiento de la revolución.
And as if it was in Venezuela, they had to do away with the Bolivarian War for Cuba, with the Cuban Revolution. Let's put a point to this.
Eso es, porque al final
at the end,
un régimen concreto o no, solo se limita a ello.
With if they want to open, and this is just a system of governance that will be substituted by another one. The problem is, and it lies in the revolutions. The revolution
no están adjuntas a un líder concreto.
The revolutions are not they're not joined to a political stance or a person. And let's say that the powers can expand throughout the world. This is why for example, the Cuban Revolution. And should it spread in the area, we would have Israel, as well as Saudi Arabia, or these countries that are very close allies and satellites to the Western world. They would also have a big space, because the social mark, and this goes beyond these puppet governments that now govern this area. This is why there's this fear of the propagation of this revolution, of the Islamic revolution, to give to just have a copy of the picture with Iran that is and with Saddam Hussein in power, they had a direct threat on not only that the threat was going to have this as anything, but of course you could answer all of the Moroccans. Let's not forget that the Revolution War of Iran, here we have that there are social movements, but we must recall And we will analyze some other program, but we must recall that some minorities that are not Shiites support quietly. They support the system because they're and what happens is they feel comfortable. And if this is the credential of a zone, of a sect, this is why Cuba, Venezuela, and Iran are
a que esa revolución se pueda extender y eso haga que los pueblos de la zona luchen por su independencia.
And what happens is that these people are trying to fight for their sovereignty as opposed to the protectionism of the Western companies and the transnational companies that nowadays are here and they take over any better idea. Thank you very much, Haritz. Let's go mark a new pause in our critical move. But before, we want you to participate. We want you to interact with us through the strategic move. Why is the West always trying to sanction the development of the development of Iran? You can still participate. Meanwhile, we're going to go to the pause, and when we're back, we want to continue dialoguing with another guest. During the last decades, Iran has maintained themselves without aligning to the Western policies. What have they had as an answer? Let's see. Iran is a country with wide possibilities of becoming a great power. They possess a lot of territory with many resources and a lot of people that are well formed. However, the imperialism has imposed coercive measures that have limited their capacity to grow. The intermission of the U.S. has been permanent. In 1995, they imposed oil sanctions for an alleged support to the world of jewelry. In January 2012, George Bush accused Iran of being part of the axis of evil. Washington said that the Ayatollahs were fostering to be a leading role members. Then Iran decided to stop their uranium enrichment program and let the institution come and check out their installations. Then in December, there were conversations with the European Union about the nuclear program. In 2005, after the winning of Ahmadinejad, they said that they would enrich uranium with beneficial objectives. Then the United States imposed a new sanction between 2010 and 2012. The Security Council of the United Nations imposed a fourth round of punishments, even putting an embargo on the financial movement. There is a boycott on exporting the president. After years of negotiation, in July 2015, Tehran signed an agreement with the United States, UK, France, Russia, China, and Germany, the well-known G5+1, and the sanctions were lifted. The government of Iran accepted to stop and to limit their uranium enrichment, and they gave access to the installations on behalf of all of the experts. However, Trump said that this was the most awful pact in the world. Immediately, there were more actions against Iran. That's what I'm going to reflect right now with Luis Arriaza. He's a lawyer, an expert in international affairs, and he's commissioner for the JPSUV in the international field. I would like to explain what JPSUV is. Well, the youngsters of we are the inheritance of this. And this is the party of Chavez, the party of the Bolivarian Revolution. Luis, let's go down to our topics. Iran is the victim of economic sanctions. They are unilateral, and as well as been Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, China. And here, where there's an absolute monarchy and a dynasty, and they go to be and with the leader of the Ayatollah Khamenei, we would like to make a parallelism with the Bolivarian Revolution. Because before, the imperialism was in favor of the United States, the UK, and now they made a revolution, and what they did is to recover their market. They have a right, just like for Latin America was all of the Latin American struggles. Let me go beyond. The revolution of Evo Morales in Bolivia. They rescued the values of their ancestors. And they stopped making these. And there was a monopoly of the state resources, of the oil. So, just to put it in context, this parallelism, there's a trait that I think that has not been widely spread, which is the Bolivarian road that there's been for these years of flat church. In any case, and now these original languages have become official, just like Iran. All of the social cultural rescue after the Islamic Revolution was
contrariada por todos estos países del G-MEMO, no solo en el aspecto del rescate cultural, sino que cambió la geopolítica.
And because the geopolitics of the region has changed. Let me ask you a question. In what degree can we change the Islamic Revolution, the geopolitics of a profoundly conflicted area, such as the the Persian Gulf? Well, some of the parties have also advanced with the technology in their car.
Desarrollo de la energía nuclear con fines pacíficos. Ese apellido de los fines pacíficos parece que
this title is not understood by the Western powers. In fact, 12, 13.
Vuelve a sancionar a la República de Irán
and they sanction Iran once again with an awful coercive measures that are unilateral to create what they wanted to create in Syria, which was a weakness, false. And this time it's false because Iran. So, taking this case to Latin America, we can clearly see how they work. For example, in Venezuela, they've been practicing the same non-conventional war.
Sanciones mal llamadas sanciones también, porque son medidas coercitivas unilaterales. Porque ningún Estado tiene esa capacidad de sancionar a otro. Son unas medidas coercitivas unilaterales que lo que precisamente
what these unilateral coercion measures, what they're trying to do is to do away with the quality of life of the people in Venezuela, to promote and induce
una primavera árabe, en este caso un estallido social
an Arab Spring with a social outburst in Venezuela, and to put a puppet in the power. They've done this not only with Venezuela.
Bueno, en el caso de Irán, yo creo que
in the case of Iran, I think that there is
cultural arraigada muy fuerte, porque bueno, la cultura persa es una cultura milenaria.
Because they go to the Persian civilization, which is millions of years. They've been able to attain a lot of results in terms of modernization, of education.
Tener una conciencia a niveles generales, a pesar de que se ha visto deteriorada su calidad de vida, como en Venezuela, a través del tema de las sanciones, de las medidas coercitivas unilaterales, ellos han logrado pues
and they've been able to use through these sanctions to go beyond their borders and have an influence on the zone, as well as Venezuela in this case. They have, thank you, because through them we were able to transcend that fence that was, that cultural fence that we had.
Con una juventud mucho más consciente de lo que implica y más consciente
and now they're more aware of why the difficulties we are struggling. What happens in Iran, it happens in other larger wars. Well, Iran and the geopolitics, and when we speak of Iran and geopolitics, we speak of the naval conjoint exercises that have been carried out at the end of last year, along with China and Russia. And as I said at some point of the program, when they stopped these military practices, it was that they were called like excellent.
Ya va. Irán está enviando un mensaje claro al mundo, sobre todo al mundo occidental.
And what they say is that they are sending a very strong message. And the message I can send is to have strength.
Irán es un país rodeado de bases norteamericanas en Irak, en Siria, en Bahrein, en Arabia Saudita.
And there are many countries that have been affected by this power. For example, Israel as a satellite country.
Aliado estratégico de los Estados Unidos en la región, por supuesto que se va a sentir amenazada, siendo además un país con ambiciones expansionistas que lo ha llevado a cabo durante toda la historia.
And if we see if it's possible to send you this weapon,
contener el terrorismo.
Incluso hay analistas que coinciden en decir que en la zona
más amenazada por Israel
los Estados Unidos de una posible expansión.
Of possible Iranian expansion. Well, of course, for the region, for geographical regions, they are closer to Israel, the United States, and of course, the answer of Iran to these attacks will be to take out the U.S. influence from the zone, little by little. And along with this, an asymmetric war, but it doesn't only factor to the presence of the war. And this is from Iran, the first enemy.
Primer enemigo del Estado Islámico en la zona.
Y cuando hablamos de Daesh, hablamos de Estados Unidos.
Hablamos de Estados
Unidos. And we spoke about the U.S. and Hillary Clinton. In some declarations, Hillary Clinton even accepted that they had been those who began the Islamic State.
Como de la primavera árabe. Y fíjate, por qué, por ejemplo,
for example, why does the Islamic State never attack Israel when they are fundamental?
Que vale la pena reflexionar.
Exacto.
Y bueno, nada, el Estado Islámico así aplaudió la muerte de Qasem Soleimani. ¿Y por qué ahora entonces esa contradicción de que Qasem Soleimani es un líder terrorista, si fue quien contuvo al Estado Islámico en toda la región y era quien precisamente contenía pues el conflicto armado y en la presencia del Estado Islámico en Siria, en Irak, etcétera?
Y llama también la atención cómo el
And it's
asesinato
also
de Qasem Soleimani
noteworthy how the
ocurre
assassination of
días después de
Soleimani is
finalizadas
days
estas
after
exitosas
these
prácticas
very successful
militares en la
military
zona del
practice in
Golfo,
the
sobre
zone of the
todo
Gulf,
en el Mar de Omán
especially in
y
the Oman
parte del
Sea
Océano
and part
Pacífico
of the Pacific
entre
Ocean
Irán, China
between
y
Iran,
Rusia.
China,
Cuando te
Russia.
hablaba de
When I
mensajes,
spoke about
también queremos tocar la línea de o esa segunda vertiente, ¿no?, que podría estar
or this
contenida en
second
el
line that
mensaje
could
que Irán le
be
envía al mundo,
could
no
be
solamente de
said
su
by
fortaleza
Iran.
militar, sino además de a quienes se alía, ¿no? Me refiero aquí a Beijing y Moscú.
Y Moscú, por supuesto. Sin embargo, yo no creo que
However, I
esta
don't
respuesta
think
militar de Irán
that this
todavía
military answer
intervenga China y Rusia. Sin embargo, bueno, ya...
No lo harían porque también son respetuosos de la soberanía de las naciones.
Por supuesto. Sin embargo, ya Estados Unidos le dio una orden, como suele ser su estilo temperamental del presidente norteamericano, en la política internacional a China de no consumir crudo iraní.
Not forget that they're trying to block the Iranian fuel. And this is a demonstration of this beware, don't step in here because there are interests here. Regardless, that we have to explain that the United States is in the verge of the 2020 elections, and of course they always want to open a confrontation so they can gear up the nationalist spirits and raise their popularity in the polls. President Bush at the time, they spoke about the death of Saddam Hussein, Obama too. And let's not forget that Saddam Hussein was formerly an ally of the U.S. and then an enemy. And then we have President Obama at his time. He also wanted to increase his popularity. It was never proven, but he killed Osama bin Laden anyway. Bin Laden was killed many times. It was never proven. But today, Trump is now saying that he killed Qasem Soleimani, who was not only a strategist, a military leader, but also a political leader of the region. Very interesting. Let's go to conclusions, but I would like to ask you about the Iranian geopolitics and where it will take us in the near future. In the near future, Iran is focusing on the attack against terrorism. Soleimani was a very important piece in this revolution. However, his unfortunate death affects this break to the Daesh in the region. But I think that this policy will always stop the United States in the Middle East.
Y lo dijeron sus máximas autoridades, nuestra verdadera venganza se va a concretar cuando salga el último militar estadounidense de esta zona.
Por eso yo creo que los ataques no van a ir directo al territorio norteamericano, sino va a ser en eliminar la presencia norteamericana en el Medio Oriente. Y eso de verdad es saludable para la región.
Luis, 1.000.000 de gracias por haberte acercado a los estudios centrales de Telesur para reflexionar en torno a Irán y su geopolítica. Vamos a las conclusiones. En medio de sanciones infundadas de Occidente a Irán, en medio de ataques de la Casa Blanca a la soberanía del país persa, manifiesto esto último en el reciente asesinato del general Qasem Soleimani, la nación se yergue digna y junto a potencias emergentes con las que hay que contar hoy en la escena geopolítica, la revolución islámica dice no al imperialismo, fuera la intromisión de Estados Unidos en la zona del Golfo, al tiempo que deja un mensaje cada vez más claro. No deseamos la guerra, pero quien nos busque nos encontrará. Cerramos por hoy el tablero. Hasta la próxima.